Sort that.
Okay. Alright, okay guys, well welcome to this Facebook Live question and answer session that we're doing today. Really excited about doing this. We've got some questions that we got the other day that I've already got written down here, but obviously we'll be taking anything that's coming in live as well. So we'll go to the first question. First question, what do you think about the UKIP leadership television debates being cancelled by one candidate? Well yes, this really goes to the heart of everything really. I think, you know, we want to have debates because we're an open, democratic party. You know, we passionately believe that actually the more open we are, the more democratic, the more debate we have, it's actually better, not just for the party, but for the country as well, so they can see what we believe, what we actually stand for. And I think it's an absolute disgrace that Diane James has refused to do any of the TV debates at all. It's been so undemocratic, it's been so unopen, and I think there's actually a big case now that we need to have a television debate. And I would say this to Diane, we've got less than a week left. I hope at some point we can actually have some sort of debate between the five of us candidates. I think that would be very healthy for the members, I think it would be great for the country, and I think, you know, we're missing a trick here, because the Labour Party is getting so much time, so much press from doing television debates, and I think we are really missing out on not doing television debates. So I'm asking Diane today, if we can somehow get one arranged in the next week, I think we should definitely try and do a TV debate. It would be really good for the party and it would be really good for the country to see what the differences are in policy terms and in the direction we want to take this party in. So I'm appealing that we can try and get some sort of debate sorted in the next week or so that's left of the campaign. Okay, our second question. Would you reform the electoral system, and if so, how? Well, yes, this is a fundamental question. I think absolutely we need to have electoral reform. I think we have a very, very unfair system at the moment. You know, it can't be right that 1.5 million votes in Scotland gets the SNP 56 MPs, you know, and yet 3.8 million votes for UKIP in England and across the whole country gets us one member of parliament. I think this is completely wrong. It's a scandal. And it's something we should be arguing to change. So certainly I'm saying in this leadership contest, if I'm the next leader of UKIP, UKIP will be campaigning for a 50-50 system. Now what that means is 50% of our seats will be done by first past the post seats, and the other 50% would be done by PR, proportional representation, so that everyone's voice in politics is heard and that every single vote counts. Because I think the problem with our politics at the moment is if you live in a Labour constituency or a strong Tory constituency, you almost feel as if your vote is wasted. I think if we had a 50% first past the post and 50% PR, it would encourage more people to get involved with the democratic process, it would get more people voting, and that's got to be healthy for our democracy. So let's get that real reform. Let's have a 50% first past the post seats, and let's get 50% of PR, and let's make sure everyone's voice in politics counts. Number 3 question. Is democracy at risk if the party has an appointed board? The answer to that question very simply is yes, it is. Democracy is really at risk in this leadership contest. I am very, very concerned about Diane James's proposal. If we have an appointed board, which is wholly and utterly appointed by the leader and the leader's supporters, then I believe that takes all democracy out of the party. It takes power away from members, and it gives all of the power. It gives all of the power to the party leader, and I think that's wrong. We've got to be an open, democratic party. We believe that our members have got to be the bosses in this party, not rich businessmen, and that's why I say to people, if you are worried about democracy in this party, then I would say come and support me in this leadership contest. Let's have some real democracy. Let's have real reform of the National Executive Committee. Let's publish the minutes of the meetings. Let's take the meetings all around the country so everyone in the whole country gets a say on the future direction. And also let's have regionally elected members so that every part of the United Kingdom is well represented in our national executive and gets the chance to voice their opinion on the direction that UKIP takes moving forward. Question 4. What are your policies on energy? Well, look, I think it's an absolute scandal, the climate change con that has been going on. And I think what we've got to do is we've got to scrap that 2008 Climate Change Act. I think we've got to reduce the level of taxation, green levies that are happening on businesses, because that is actually stopping manufacturing and our steel industry and a lot of other of our industries actually being able to compete on a fair basis. So I think we've got to reduce the bureaucracy and the regulation and the red tape and the taxes on our businesses. Let's actually get behind supporting British manufacturing. Let's get behind supporting our steel industry. I'm one of the candidates that said, look, we've got to actually help our steel industry. It's a long-term industry. It's suffering in the short term. So let's give it a short-term loan that we can actually help protect our vital industries like steel in the long run. So absolutely, let's reduce the burdens, let's reduce the taxes, let's actually reduce the regulations and actually make sure that our economy is the most important thing, not this ridiculous nonsense of climate change. And you have to bear this in mind as well. This is a very important statistic. The UK actually only contributes 0.01% of the world's carbon emissions. Until we get America and China and India doing things on climate change, Britain will make no difference whatsoever. So let's not destroy the British economy just to try and go on some green adventure, which in my view is a complete and utter waste of time. Question 5, how do we unite UKIP? Well, yes, this is the central question that will actually be the most important thing for the next leader of UKIP to do. And I think we need somebody who is strong, who is passionate, who is young, who's got the vision for this party, who's got the ability to lead people and actually lead by example. And I think in this leadership contest I've shown that I have those skills. But also it's about building a strong team. It's about uniting people. We have so much talent in this party. I'm not going to get into naming individuals, but we have so many people. And I think what we have to do once this leadership contest is over is we have to sit everybody down and we have to try and build that strong team, because we've got a more important objective than the future of UKIP. We've got to start fighting for the future of our country. Because we've got two parties in Westminster, Labour and the Conservatives, who've made a complete and utter mess of this country for decades. And what we need to be is we need to be the party of real change that comes along and actually delivers for the hard-working majority of the British people who are fed up to the back teeth of Westminster career politicians who've never had a real job or any real life experience in their life. So that's what we've got to do. We've got to be the party that ends the Blairite politics that has devastated our country for the last 20 years. And the only way we're going to do that is if we get everyone together in UKIP, unite this party, build a strong team, and get on with taking the fight to Labour and the Conservatives. Okay, question 6. What skills would you bring to the leadership job? Well, I think I've proved in this leadership contest I'm somebody who doesn't fear debate. I actually relish debate. I actually love debate. And I think what we need is we need a strong leader who can communicate our message, but also someone with the interpersonal skills that can actually build a strong team, unite UKIP as a party. And I think I have got those skills to do that. But also I've set out the vision of what we need to do as a party. You know, we need to be the party that fights to protect the National Health Service, fights for tougher policies on law and order, a truly fair economy, controlled immigration, strong defence, smaller government and lower taxes. And I think I've set out that vision. I'm the person that can lead this thing and take UKIP to the next level. Okay, next question. Question 7. Is Prime Minister May saying she wouldn't have an Australian points-based system and attempt to try and soften Brexit? Well, the answer to that question, I would say, is yes. Theresa May is trying to soften Brexit. She's going for compromises on the single market, which I think is wrong. I don't think we want to be in the single market. We want to make our own free trade agreement with the EU. And she's also being soft on immigration, because I think she doesn't want an Australian points-based system, because really she doesn't want a limit on immigration. She wants the high levels of immigration that started under Labour. You know, immigration under Labour in 2010, when Labour left power, was 252,000 people. Far too many people coming into the country. And now, under the Conservatives, under the last 6 years of Theresa May as Home Secretary, we've had immigration at 330,000. That is too many people coming into the country. And I think Theresa May doesn't want to have a limit on immigration. And this is an opportunity for UKIP, because now UKIP is the only party in British politics that is saying let's have a fair immigration system, but let's have controlled immigration. Let's bring in that Australian points-based system, which treats everyone the same, everyone fairly, everyone equally, and judges each individual by their own skills and talents. And we would have a limit of between 30 and 50,000. That's what needs to happen, and we've got to be the party that puts the maximum political pressure on Theresa May to make sure that we get controlled immigration. Okay, question 8. Is President Obama scaremongering over Brexit, and what are your thoughts? Well, absolutely. I mean, President Obama is probably one of the most disastrous presidents the United States has ever had. He is a complete and utter failure. I mean, if you look at what he's done to the American economy, he came in 2008 saying that a $9 trillion US debt was unpatriotic. That's what he said. Well, look at it now. It's $19 trillion. He has more than doubled the national debt of America. He's made the American economy a complete and utter mess. He is a disastrous president, and as far as I'm concerned, he shouldn't have been coming over here telling the British people how to vote. I think it was disgraceful that he tried to intervene and the establishment used him as a pawn to come in, and he was threatening Britain to be back of the queue. Well, what a load of nonsense that's turned out to be. What has happened since? We've had wages have gone up, we've got growth has gone up, we've got exports have gone up, and our actual business investment into Britain is at the highest level it's ever been. So Obama and the establishment have talked complete and utter rubbish on this. The fact is Brexit is positive for Britain. It's important because we want our freedom and our sovereignty and our independence back. Now, the Americans always talk about sovereignty and independence, and Barack Obama always says he loves freedom and independence. Well, I ask this question. Would America sacrifice its independence and its lawmaking, and would it contribute £350 million to Mexico and Canada for the right for them to run America? I don't think so. America wouldn't sacrifice its freedom and independence, so why on earth should Britain? We should be proud of the fact that this country, 17.4 million people, came out on the 23rd of June and voted for Britain to get its freedom back, its independence back, its sovereignty back, and control of our money, our borders and our laws. That's what the British people voted for, that's what we want, and that's what we must get. And a strong, effective political UKIP will hold Theresa May's feet to the fire and ensure that we deliver Brexit for the British people. Question 9. Who would you pick, Clinton or Trump? Oh my goodness, well, this is a really two terrible choices, in all honesty. I mean, how can you pick between the two of them? You've got Hillary Clinton, who's the most establishment figure through and through. She represents no change whatsoever. She is the friend of Wall Street. She is the friend of big banks. She is the friend of the establishment. She's establishment through and through. So I would never ever be able to vote for Hillary Clinton. And I think Donald Trump has a lot of issues with himself as well. Some of the things he said, quite frankly, I find quite reprehensible and quite appalling. So I would have to say I probably wouldn't vote for either of them, is my honest and truthful answer on that one. Question 10. What is the right level of immigration for Britain? Well, I touched on this earlier on. I think the right level for immigration for Britain is that we have somewhere between 30 and 50,000. I think we can't have this situation where 330,000 people are coming into the country every single year. That is unsustainable. It puts amazing pressure on housing, on schools, on hospitals, on jobs. It actually just is totally and utterly unmanageable. We have no idea how many people are coming into this country every year. And that cannot go on. So Britain has got to be a country that says, yes, we see the benefits of immigration, but it's got to be controlled immigration. And I would make this point, between 1945 and 1997, before that disastrous Prime Minister Tony Blair got in, immigration in this country never went above 50,000 people. And immigration wasn't an issue, because people understood that we have to have immigration, but it was controlled. And I think if we get back to that situation, then immigration will probably never ever be a political issue ever again. So let's have control, let's have that Australian points-based system because it treats everybody equally, and let's make sure we have a sensible level of immigration of 30 to 50,000. Question 11. Would you cut taxes, and if so, which ones? Well, yes, I think we can't cut every single tax, but I'm being very sensible in the tax policies that I'm setting out in this leadership contest. I think we need to do essentially a couple of very important tax cuts. I think we should raise that tax threshold to £15,000 to help the lowest paid people in our country. I think we should also make sure that big businesses pay their fair share of tax, because it is absolutely scandalous that big businesses, some of them at the moment, are not paying any tax on their income in this country whatsoever. So we would bring in that turnover tax to ensure big businesses pay their fair share. Also, we'd bring in a 30% business rate cut to help our forgotten town and city centres, bring shops and jobs to our town and city centres that the Westminster elite have totally and utterly forgotten and ignored for far too long. So let's have some tax cuts that we can afford, but let's make sure that they are sensible tax cuts. We're not going to promise things that we can't deliver. I think there are 3 sensible, fair tax cuts, and let's actually have that fair economy. If we do those 3 tax cuts, then I think we would have a very, very fair economy in this country, and I think most people would rally behind that policy. What are your policies on animal welfare? Yes, well, I think animal welfare is a very, very important issue. I think it's absolutely disgraceful that some people, the way they treat the animals is absolutely disgusting. And I think actually we've got to make sure that we're a lot tougher on this situation. If somebody does treat their animals really, really badly, then we should be prepared to increase the sentences against those people and certainly increase massively the fines by a huge amount. And also I think we should make sure that we bring in lifetime bans, because once somebody has treated animals in such an appalling way, then in my view they should never be able to look after animals again. Question 13. What are your plans for the NHS? Well, yes, the NHS is a very, very important issue. I think we have to protect the National Health Service. I think we've got to oppose and stop the privatisation that was started by Blair, carried on by Cameron. We've got to make sure we keep the NHS in the public sector free at the point of use. It's got to be in the good of the patient rather than private profit, which I think has been the problem under Blair. You know, we had the Competition Act of 1998. We've had the 2006 NHS Act. You know, we had those PFI deals, which cost taxpayer £50 billion in loans, £300 billion in repayments. And I think it's an absolute scandal. You know, the private profit has been allowed to make so much money off our National Health Service. And I think we've got to scrap the hospital car parking charges, which are a tax on the sick and are absolutely disgraceful. So let's actually look after our National Health Service. Let's stop the regionalisation of the health service. Let's get back to local services at the local hospital. And let's make sure that our NHS, which is one of the most important institutions in the country, is actually protected and kept in the public sector, and stop the NHS privatisation that has done so much damage to our NHS. And it looks like we've got something else as well. It's saying here that Neil's saying UKIP needs to strike while Labour are in turmoil. Well, Neil, absolutely, I totally agree with you. I think the Labour Party is in an absolute, utter mess. Jeremy Corbyn looks like he's going to get re-elected as leader of the Labour Party. If that happens, then I think UKIP has a golden opportunity in the north. We've got to get out there and sell our message to people and say to people, look, if you want a working class, hard-working alternative in UKIP, then this is the party for you. A party that stands to protect the National Health Service, a party that believes in strong defence, a party that believes in tougher policies on law and order, a party that believes in having a fair economy, where we actually make sure big businesses pay their fair share and we help the lowest paid. So absolutely, this is a massive opportunity for UKIP. We've got to get out there and seize this moment. You know, and I would also say it's not just about the north of the country. It's also about the south as well, because there are areas where we can win seats off the Tories in the south. So yes, let's focus on the north, but let's not forget that the south of the country is just as important, whether they're a Labour seat, whether they're a Tory seat, whether they're in the north, whether they're in the south. If UKIP can win those seats, let's get our targeting strategy right. Let's get onto those councils and take council seats, but let's also make sure that when the next election comes, people know that UKIP are the party that can beat Labour and beat the Tories.
There's a couple more as well.
Okay, I'll have a look down. The wonders of technology. Well, someone says here, since she will not debate, is she useless at it and she knows it? Well, I don't know. You'd have to ask Diane that question herself. I mean, I know I love a good debate. I think it's very healthy. I think it's democratic. I think it's the right thing to do. And I am frustrated in a way that we haven't been able to have those TV debates. We haven't been able to discuss the things that we should be discussing, which is the policy direction and the direction strategically of the party as well. And I think party members want to hear this. They want to hear what our views are. They want to know more about the candidates. They want to know, well, what are our policies? What are we going to do with UKIP? Because UKIP, as we said, has a huge, massive opportunity. You know, and we should be taking it. And I just think, I'm pretty sure that party members agree with me on this. Whether you support me or you support another candidate, Surely the right thing to do is to have the debate, is to have the actual debate about policy, the debate about the future direction of the party. That would be a healthy thing to do. We're a democratic party. That's what we believe in. And I think Diane has played it absolutely wrong in not engaging in the leadership process. This policy of non-engagement it's not right, and it's not UKIP. I mean, where would Nigel Farage have got with a policy of non-engagement? You know, he wouldn't get us the referendum, he wouldn't have gotten nearly 4 million votes at the general election, and he wouldn't have won the referendum, which has gotten our freedom, sovereignty and independence back. So I know where I am. The more debate we have, the better, the healthier it is for the party, the healthier it is for the country.
There's a question which says, will you make a promise to put in a manifesto that will give 2% of GDP to our forces?
The answer to that question is yes, absolutely. I think our armed forces are one of the most important priorities in this country. And in my defence that I've already set out, I have said very, very clearly, 2% of our GDP will go on defence.
You've also said about the charity thing as well.
That's right. The help to stop the homeless, possible armed forces going homeless. Absolutely, we need to make sure that we treat our armed forces personnel a lot better when they come back from active duty, and we would bring in that the Heroes Fund to make sure that we actually make sure that the Homeless Heroes Fund would make sure that our armed forces personnel, once they come back from active duty, would never ever go homeless. Because I think it's a scandal the way we treat our armed forces, and I also think it's a scandal the way the last Labour government and this Tory government have treated our armed forces. And we need to make sure we bring back those 20,000 troops in our army, because we need strong defence.
There's another one which says, would you cut foreign aid down to disaster relief only?
Answer that question, absolutely I would. I think £16 billion is far too much to be spending on foreign aid. We need to make sure that we're spending far, far less on that. And what we should be doing with that £16 billion is we should be spending it on our frontline NHS, our armed forces and the police. But there are other things that we can cut. There's the £16 billion in foreign aid, yes, but there's also the £40 billion we're wasting on quangos. There's £60 billion that we're wasting on that massive white elephant, the HS2 project. And we've got to also make sure we reform the Barnett formula and cut £4 billion off that, so that the whole of England, every region in England, also gets a fair deal.
There's another question from Jason Hargreaves. Will you bring UKIP's HQ up to the north?
It's something we should certainly look at, I think. I think we should maybe potentially have another headquarters that would be up in the north. I think we need to have a lot more focus on the north. I think also we've got to make sure our communication in this party is much better. You know, it is the 3 C's. Communication, communication, communication. And whether that's emails, whether that's using social media, making sure we have a strategy is very, very important, and actually communicating that strategy, not just to members, but across to the public as well, is very, very important. So yes, that is something that we would look at. I don't want to make a commitment unless I know we can do it, but that is something I would certainly very much look at.
And the last one which you can see on here is, would you offer Stephen Wolfe the deputy leader role if you win?
If I win, I would certainly offer Stephen Wolfe some sort of role. What role he would want and what role I would want him to have, I'm not sure yet. We'd have to think about that. But certainly I would consider him for a high-profile role, and I certainly would consider him for the deputy leadership of the party.
It says, does animal welfare cover halal meat?
Well, I think halal meat is one of those issues. I wouldn't say we want to ban things, because I don't think we're the party that wants to ban anything. You know, I am worried about some of the tone that some of the other candidates are using in this leadership contest. You know, when they say they want to ban the burqa or they want to ban faith schools. Now look, I'm not that kind of candidate. I don't think UKIP should be banning things. You know, but I think we should look at things on a case-by-case basis, and I think we should put forward our policies in a reasonable, sensible, very moderate tone, because I think people want to hear sensible policies from UKIP, and I think a sensible UKIP will do very, very well at the next general election.
There's the last one on here. It says, learning English and integrating is part and parcel of fitting in. Do you believe a time limit should be set to reach an adequate level of English? Just bear with me. Would you have those deported who refuse to integrate or cannot?
Well, what I would say is absolutely, integration is an integral part of coming to this country. Yes, we want people to come here, work hard, pay their taxes, contribute to the system. So yes, absolutely, they've got to learn English, they've got to adapt to the culture, they've got to actually come here and become part of the country. You know, we shouldn't be changing our culture for people coming here, they've got to come here and adapt to our culture. And absolutely, I think learning the language is very, very important. Learning English, very, very important. So I very much agree with the sentiments that have been expressed.
Another one, would you promise to campaign for St George's Day to be a national holiday?
Absolutely, this is something I've talked about in the past. I think we do need to have more national holidays. I think we have far too few national holidays as a country. I think we should have more time to ourselves and our families to be able to relax and have a bit of chill out time, which is very, very important, you know, because life shouldn't be all work and no play. You've got to have a good balance of both. So absolutely, I think St George's Day should be a national holiday, and that is something I would absolutely be campaigning for.
Just bear with me, see if there are
Anything
more
else?
questions.
The wonders of technology.
Just
Yes.
double check. I can't see any questions at the moment, but if there is any more questions, will you be able to answer them if you leave them in the comments section?
We'll be
below?
very happy to answer any more comments or any more questions that come through. And I just want to say thank you for doing this. Thanks for being involved. And thank you to all you guys for watching as well. It's been a real good blast.